Welcome to Be Happy and Feel Great. Leisure time and hobbies are very important to be happy, and giving back to the community makes everybody feel great. I have a very special show today with two of the officers from the Peconic Bay Car Club, the Peconic Bay region of the Car Club, and it's really going to be a great show. I have my first guest is Joe Inducey, who's been on the show before.
Thank you.
He's our president, and Andy's is Alfo, the secretary, and I'm just thrilled to have both of them that could make it today to really talk to you and tell you about all the excitement of the Peconic Bay Region Car Club. Okay, so thanks guys for
Mike.
coming out here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Oh, always a pleasure. And, you know, we have a lot of people watching today, and maybe the first thing you could tell us is really, what is a car club, and a little bit about the Peconic Bay Region Car Club.
Sure.
Okay, so would somebody like to
Well, we're part of the Antique Automobile Club of America, and you'll see the publication of the national headquarters is here. That's a recent issue.
Beautiful 1956 T-Bird there. That's a gorgeous car. Yeah.
And so we're a region of the Antique Automobile Club of America, the AACA, and we're headquartered out in the North Fork of Long Island. And we also have a publication, which is our little newsletter. It comes out every month. It's called Blue Smoke, and that's for our members. It includes information about our activities. It even has some classified ads in the back, and it also has articles of interest to the members, articles about the cars and some technical articles about how restoration needs to be done or can be done on certain vehicles.
So by being out on the North Fork, it's just a great destination for anybody with a car to drive to. You know, there's more people, whether it's any kind of car club, they all seem to want to go out to the North Fork. It's one of those last places where you can still find the country roads and remember what Long Island used to be like, I think, when a lot of people were growing up.
Yep.
The meetings are out there?
Yes, the meetings are on the third Thursday of every month, and we have it at the Southold Recreation Center.
It's on Peconic Lane in Peconic.
Peconic Lane in Peconic.
Okay.
And it's a fairly convenient location for most people who live out in that area, but we do have people from Shelter Island who come over, and we have people from both South Fork and North Fork.
And up the island.
And
people would
all the
travel
way
to
back,
come out there.
back onto the island.
Yeah, and it happens to be a great location, a great group of people. A lot of people I know, you know, they would love to be part of something like that, but they don't have a car.
A car ownership is not required.
Is that right?
Not at all. Ownership is not a requirement. The only requirement is an interest and a desire. And if people have that and they want to be involved in the old car hobby, they're more than welcome to look us up and join our club. And they'll be amongst people who have a common interest. And then eventually, if they do get a vehicle of their own, that's fine, and they can or they can't. It just doesn't matter. Car ownership is never a requirement.
Oh, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to watch this show, and after they see some of the activities and different things for the community that the club does, the camaraderie of everybody, and the events and the social atmosphere, I'm sure that there'll be people that would want to be part of it. Website, I believe, is going to be listed here today, right? We'll have the website on the bottom throughout the show.
Yep.
And that would give all the information when the meetings are in different activities.
Yeah, the Peconic Bay region is a very active club. We carry out a lot of activities. We're in many parades. We have one of the only of two AACA judged car shows on Long Island.
Well, you know what? We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little while, but One of the things that was very, very exciting and really the heart of the show today is there was a visitation to one of the nursing homes. And it wasn't the first time. It was one of many nursing homes over the years that the car club went to. And can you just maybe tell us a little bit about what that was really all about?
Yeah, yeah, that was a visit out to the Simeon nursing home out in, I believe it's Greenport.
In
Is that
Greenport, yes,
Greenport?
yes.
And we had arranged to have our club drive out and pay a visit to the nursing home. And the residents of the home were brought out to look at the vehicles. And our club features a myriad of vehicles. We don't specifically stay with any one brand or one year. So there's many years represented. And it's very, very enlightening and very heartwarming to see these people come out and look at these cars, and memories are triggered, and they recall the days when they were younger, or perhaps they were first learning to drive, or perhaps their parents or their grandparents or somebody owned a similar vehicle, and they look at the cars and then they start to talk about their experiences in life and what those cars meant to them and their family back at a time.
So they could really reminisce and enjoy it. And we happen to have a video that we're going to show right now. Okay. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long, and it really is an overview of what that day was like, okay? Yes. So if we could show that video, this would be great, and then we'll talk a little more after it.
My favorite car is the red one.
And then Henry Ford had to start making colors, putting colors in cars. This beautiful car is a 28 Model A. Big transition took place from the T almost instantly to a fairly modern car. It revolutionized America. Allowed the farm people to transport themselves. Every working man could afford to buy a car.
Model T reminds me because it was my brother's first car.
I'm Ronnie Jacobs. Cars are all in good shape here.
Favorite car, Bernie?
Attaching pretty.
Ida Bright, and my father had a Packard, and that's my favorite car, and it's that gray car over there.
That was really modified. This was different. 2009, when we drove across country, we started at a friend's house in East Setauket and went across on the ferry to Bridgeport to join the group over there in Connecticut, and then set off, and it took us 4 weeks, and we covered 4,600 miles. I had 3 flat tires.
happy to do it. It's a great time for us to get the cars out, and we love to have things where we give back to the community a little bit. And this is perfect. And it looks like everybody's really enjoying it. Perfect day. Perfect day.
Perfect day, and the residents were really looking forward to it. They really were. They were all lined up early this morning, waiting for the cars to come. So I want to thank you again, and I want to thank everybody for bringing the cars. You know, they take time out of their day.
It was just a great video. It really showed the different cars like Andy you were talking about before, and Joe as president, you must have really been proud to.
It really was a great day. I mean, you know, when I get older and wind up in a nursing home, I hope somebody from the Peconic Bay region brings their cars out for me to come out and see.
Yeah, they'll probably have like a 2014, you know.
Well, I don't know. I hope I live that long. Right now, we cut off at 1989, 25 years and older.
25 and older is an antique thing.
Yeah,
That's what it's considered.
Collectible car, yeah.
Collectible.
Yep.
Okay, well, that was great. And, you know, you were both really saying, giving back to the community, it doesn't have to be something organized like that just was.
Not at all.
No, if you just park your car, if you go out to dinner and park your car and go in and have dinner, and you'll see people stand around, look at the car and ask you questions. You see the smile on their face. And in a sense, you're giving back right there because they're getting fond memories of the past, fond memories of their youth, and they'll say, my father had a car like that, my uncle had a car similar to that. And so that little act right there is bringing some joy to some people.
Absolutely. And, you know, the cars, they do have so many memories, and maybe you could share with us the cars that you guys have.
Why don't you go ahead, Andy?
All right, well, I can start. I have two vehicles. I have a 64 Cadillac convertible. 1964 was a year that was very special to me in a personal way. I was married that year.
Okay.
I also was, I started my job, my career, right around that time, and the Cadillac was something I always admired, but I was never in a position to have one at that time. So 64 Cadillac was always a special.
I think we saw you driving a red convertible in that video. Is that the car we're talking about?
That's the car we're talking about.
Wow, beautiful.
And the 64, in my opinion, had certain styling cues about it that always kind of were a favorite of mine.
Okay.
And my other one is I have a 1940 LaSalle.
And we just saw a video was actually up a minute ago of your LaSalle.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful car.
And the LaSalle was a Cadillac product that was built from 1927 to 1940. And back at that time, General Motors was making companion cars. And each division had a companion car. Buick had a car called Marquette, Oldsmobile had Viking, Pontiac had Oakland, and Cadillac did not have a companion car. And for marketing reasons, it was found that the price difference between a Buick and a Cadillac was very steep. So the executives of General Motors came up with the idea of a companion car, and they came up with the LaSalle. And there's a whole history behind how LaSalle was built and designed. But LaSalle was it was often called a baby Cadillac. It was a little smaller version of the Cadillac, but it was built on the Cadillac assembly lines, and it was built on the Cadillac platform, and it was a very, very successful car.
Very stylish, too.
Very, very
nice
much
lines
so.
And everything, just
and
like
then in 1940, for various business reasons beknownst to the General Motors executives and marketing people, they discontinued the LaSalle at the end of the 1940
And this
model
is
year.
what's nice about being part of the car club is the wealth of knowledge that all the members have. So if there's somebody out there who's thinking, wow, this is great. I just learned so much in this first few minutes.
Yeah.
And like Joe said before, you don't even have to own a car. You could become a member, you could network with some of the people, And then when you're ready to buy a car, you would know and probably find some good deals out there also from the members.
Sure.
Yes.
Which is great. And Joe, how about your
Yeah, I have a 53 Buick, 1953. I had a 1948 Buick, which I sold, but I have one car now. It's a 53 Buick. It's kind of a rare car in the sense that that car was the last year Buick made a straight 8 engine. Can you believe? I mean, other manufacturers were making V8 engines. Buick stuck with a straight 8, probably for economic reasons. But it was a very reliable engine, and the car has a significant number of accessories. What's interesting is that I should tell you that the car, the price of the car, base price was maybe $2,300, but it has an automatic transmission, which is a pleasure to drive, and it has power steering, which is even greater. And that was the first year.
Especially back then. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first year it was offered on this model, and the price of the automatic transmission was 9% of the base price of the car, $188. And the power steering was 8%. Now, that doesn't seem, it was $177, which doesn't seem like much. But when the car started at $2,300, that was the transmission was 9% of the cost of the car. So imagine buying a small car today for $20,000, and the dealer says you have to give me $1,800 more for the automatic transmission.
Right.
Or the power steering is another $1,600. So the very few cars were made with the power steering because it was so expensive.
You know, there's so many things that people aren't aware of today with cars, and I remember that, you know, everything was an option. Nothing was included. You had a base price.
Right.
If you want, like you said, automatic transmission, power steering, things like power windows weren't even, you know, if they were, it was so rare. And Andy, you have a story about power windows too, I heard.
Yes, yes, that was an interesting story in talking about this subject matter, giving back. Around Long Island, there are many cruise nights, and cruise nights are just a group of car collectors or car enthusiasts that gather in a parking lot or a public shopping center, and they get together and they sit around and talk about their cars, and oftentimes if the general public is in the shopping center, people walk around and look at the cars, and there's no admission or anything charged. And this one particular night stands out in my mind. I was at a cruise night with one of my prior vehicles. It was a 1954 Cadillac, which I've since sold, but it was a bottom-of-the-line car. And it didn't have power options. It did have an automatic transmission and power steering, but it didn't have any of the other power accessories. Well, I was sitting there amongst a few of the other people who had cars, and we were sitting in our lawn chairs, and cars were in the background. And a young couple, a gentleman and his wife, were looking at the cars, and they had a little girl with them, and the young lady must have been about 7 or 8 years of age, and she was staring in the window of my car. And she kept looking in, and she turned to her father, and her father looked in the window, and the father and the daughter had a little bit of dialogue between each other. And the father then walked around, and he asked us politely, he said, who owns this particular car? And I said, well, that happens to be my car. And he said, well, would you do me a big favor, and would you show my daughter how the windows go up and down? So I kind of was taken back, and it was a little bit of an unusual request.
Sure.
And well, I opened the door, and I cranked the window up, and I cranked the window down, and the little girl was just fascinated. And I saw the look on her face, and she was really absorbing this. So I said, well, would you like to try the crank? And she was like just thrilled to no end, and she looked at her father and looked at me, and I says, go ahead, you can do it. And she turned that crank, and the window went up, and the window went down, and she was amazed. And her father said to me, she's never seen a car with crank windows.
Oh, isn't that funny?
And
things that we take for granted and remember.
It made me realize that here's a child of the modern modern generation
Yeah.
who has never seen crank windows on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you would have showed her the radio at that time?
Oh, I have an
Yes.
interesting story about the radio.
Yeah.
About 15 years ago, I took my cousins, younger than me, for a ride in the 48 Buick. They were very impressed by the chrome in the dashboard, the big clock, and the speedometer. And my cousin John, who's much younger than me, said, "Oh, look at that radio." He says, "Is that AM, FM?" 1948 Buick. I said, "John, you're lucky this is AM. You're lucky there's a radio. You know, it has a heater and it has a radio."
Yeah, yeah.
And those were the only options. And
You know-
crank windows.
That's so funny. You know, actually, we do have a picture of this Buick that you've been talking about.
Oh,
And
okay.
one of the things with giving back to the community is parades, you know, and that's one thing that the car club I know is very involved in. And here we have a picture of the Southold Parade, which is usually around July 4th. And if you look in the middle,
Yep.
that's the Buick that Joe has been talking about. And who's your passenger?
Andy Zolfo.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So the two of them were in the parade, just a great event, waving to everybody on July 4th, along with other members of the car club.
Sure.
And this is another way the car club does give back. Besides the parade in Southold, there's a few other parades too, right, that people participate in or
Yeah,
have in the
there's
past?
one. There's the one in Greenport, which we've
The
participated
Maritime
in
Festival.
for several years. That's always a
And-
nice one, and it's also the parades are very, 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 very heartwarming and very interesting because the community comes out and lines the streets, and we drive by with the cars, and many people ask us, "What year is the car?" And we'll say it's 1964, 1940, 1953.
People always want you to honk the horns
And,
too, and hear
that-
the different types of horns
Wave
over
to
the years.
wave to the children.
So parades are very,
Riverhead has a parade in December. I know
Yes.
George.
That's correct. We
usually
participate.
organizes.
yes, we participate in that.
And
also.
this is again by being part of the club that different organizations contact the club. They want you to be there. Clubs don't get any money for it. They participate. They volunteer to do it, but yet it's those old cars that really make a lot of the parades special. Car shows.
Oh.
Another great event, and many of the car shows are actually raising money for an organization. I know the Peconic Bay Car Club participates a lot with the Boy Scouts right in Peconic.
Correct. Yes. You know, we typically have many members attend that Boy Scout show.
Right, one of
And
our
that-
members was a big organizer of it.
That's correct. And, you know, the proceeds of that, of course, go to a good cause, Boy Scouts.
And it's great to see the Boy Scouts there collecting the money, cooking, and really learning about working with the community and everything. Now, other car shows, I should say, Halleckville is the big one.
Is the big one for the Peconic Bay region. That's a judged show following AACA guidelines.
And that's in September.
That's in September, the end of September, and we get a very large turnout for that because it's a judged show. When a person owns an antique car, they're very interested in seeing that it's authentic in the sense that it represents the car the way it came from the factory. It's like a preservation of history. Now, to gauge how closely they are and how nice their restoration is, they will bring it to a judged show where Andy and I are essentially the chief judges, and we will evaluate the car. Our team will evaluate the car. We have many judges that help us because we have over almost 200 cars to judge at the last show. And so we have a lot of work that needs to be done in tabulating the scores, et cetera. But the owner of the car gets to see how close their car comes to the way it came from the factory, and those cars that have achieved a significant improvement and a great restoration, they get a trophy.
They get trophies,
check
and
out.
again, giving back to the community, a very nice donation goes back to Halleckville also
Absolutely.
when you do it.
It's a great venue for us, and that's why we
And it
support
is in a beautiful location, and all that could be on the website. In a few years, different locations. Wounded Warrior was a great show that the Peconic Bay Car Club has sponsored, and all the proceeds went right back to Wounded Warrior. right? And
Sure.
in fact, we have a couple of pictures of the Wounded Warrior show up there right now, and it looks like the Black Beast that's up there, and some of the other member cars. And that was at Martha Clara. Prior to Martha Clara, it was at Strawberry Fields in Mattituck. And there's just a lot of locations, and there's some more. Some of the cars, look at the beauty. This shows how different the cars are, the different types of cars. And this is just a few. We're only seeing a few, but there were, again, a couple of hundred cars that would attend a show like this. Yeah. And the website for the Peconic Bay Car Club would have it, and people don't have to be a member to be part of it, which is great, you know? So there's so many ways that the car club gives back to the community, and it's a very social. There's a lot of activities, like Joe was saying before, and there's trips that they take, and different members, they have luncheons where they'll take the cars to houses and have like a nice barbecue. And it reminds me of the family parties that I used to have growing up.
Yeah.
And especially when you see the old cars on the lawn and everything. But we have to really just say to everybody watching, go to the website, go to a meeting. Andy and Joe, I want to thank you so much for being here today and educating the viewers about the show. It's, you know, I know you could talk all day long about it, and the other members, and between the two of you, you have 3 cars, but there's some members that have dozens of cars in their collection, and they would be great for everybody to meet and get involved with. Okay, so Joe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Mike,
Okay, thank you. And
Pleasure.
collecting cars or being part of a car club is a way to be happy and feel great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.